As most of you know by now, in D&D 5.5, thief rogues can use magic items as a bonus action. This is awesome if you can very easily buy or craft whatever magic items you want at your table, but not everyone can. So how can we reliably take advantage of that fun thief tactic? By mixing them with artificers, of course. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Welcome to D4. Hey everybody, so here at D4, I like to take a deep dive into character builds for my favorite role-playing games. I crunch numbers about them, I theorycraft about them, not so that I can tell you the right or the best way to play a character, but to explore one potential way to build something in the hopes of creating a character that's both fun, but also powerful to play. So if you also enjoy creating characters for your favorite role-playing games, or if you're just interested in theory crafting, or if you are just looking for tips or ideas on how to build something that you're thinking about playing, then welcome home. This is where you belong, and man, I'm glad you're here, so thanks for watching. My name's Colby. Right, so a few months ago, I built a thief rogue that tried to take advantage of this new 5.5 feature, the update to fast hands, right, that lets them use a magic item with their bonus action. Right up here, if you missed it. And you know, it is a really strong feature, and I think the build worked well, but there was something about it that just didn't quite sit right with me. Because, see, while it's true that Wizards of the Coast has done a much better job, in my opinion, in 5.5 of putting some hard rules and guidelines around how characters can craft magic items and scrolls and things, I think it's still pretty impossible for me to say, with any kind of certainty, that you should be able to build as many magic items as you need when you need them to, like, make a certain build work, right? Or buy them. I mean, to review, we're told now that to craft a magic item, we need a certain amount of gold, and a certain amount of time, and that, perhaps above all, a DM determines if the raw materials needed to craft the thing are even available. I think a lot of people forget that bit, and there are guidelines given on the likelihood of materials being available, but in a city, that's listed as a 75% chance, and in any other settlement, it's a 25% chance. And so, even if we're talking just about crafting cantrip scrolls like I was in that Doom Scroller build, I just still don't really feel like I can just tell people that you should be able to craft unlimited scrolls to use one every turn or whatever, right? I have no idea how much money you have, or how much downtime, or where you're campaigning, and if your DM feels like saying that the materials you need are available, etc., etc., etc. It's why, in that build, I kind of presented two sets of numbers, right? Numbers for those who just had infinite access to all the scrolls they wanted, and for those who maybe had more limited access, you know, a different set of numbers. And the impact on the numbers was massive as a result. So, no. You know what I actually first thought of when I saw the change to the Thief's fast hands? This would be awesome paired with an artificer. Because yeah, even though I think I can, you know, sometimes inflate the power of artificers by saying, oh, look, they get magic items for free, so that makes them stronger, when the truth is that most players at most tables are going to get magic items too, right? And very often items that will increase their power in combat in similar, if not identical ways as what the artificer can get, yeah. But in this case, when considering what the thief may or may not be able to do with that bonus action magic item use, it feels like if I pair these two together, I can actually say with complete certainty, okay, this is at the very least how powerful the Thief's Fast Hands feature can be, because we know that we're going to at least have access to these magic items, right? So that, again, is what we're going to explore today. How potent is that use a magic item with a bonus action feature truly if we can build an artificer base up first to guarantee that we'll have at least one really solid magic item we can depend on? Are you as curious as to the results as I am? I hope so. Let's jump into D&D build number 256, the Thief, the Art of Thieving? Burglar Gadget, the Clockwork Cavalier, the Kleptomechanic, the Art of the Steel, S-T-A-L, that's actually pretty clever. The Fastest Wand in Faerun. On a steel horse I ride. The Alloy Outlaw, man, the options get more and better every single week. Discord really bringing it once again, but I think we all kind of knew it was over when Fearless Elbow, they are on fire, came up with the Steel Defender. Anyways, big thanks to my good friend Randall Hampton for the fantastic artwork that he put together for the build this week. He does this every week. He really nailed the look and feel of this one, I think. And I love like the clockwork chocobo thing he's got going here. If you'd be interested in following Randall to check out the other stuff that he's done, or to maybe try and commission him to create some art for your character or even your entire party, I will put links in the video description, as always, on how to do so. Question for everybody. Do you play with theater of mind at your table or with like minis and terrain? Would you prefer the latter if you could easily have whatever mini you wanted? See, for me, I vastly prefer playing with actual physical representations of my characters, the monsters that I'm fighting. It just feels so much more immersive, you know? Problem is, trying to buy every single mini for every single character, NPC, and enemy for every game session would be incredibly expensive. Especially if you're trying to add like terrain features into the mix, right? To say nothing of needing to order the right thing or find it at the local game shop several days in advance before every single session, yeah? Well, that is where the A1 3D printer from Bamboo Labs, today's sponsor, comes in. So I have never owned a 3D printer. I've always been interested, but I felt a little intimidated by the time and the money investment to like get one and to figure out how to use it right. But I decided to finally take the plunge with Bamboo Labs, and holy cow, you guys, I am blown away by how incredibly affordable it is and how easy they make printing exactly what I need for RPG minis. Among other things, of course, but naturally that's my primary focus, right? So first of all, setting the A1 printer up was super easy. Handy little instruction book, bing bang boom. But the best part for me was how easy it was to find pre-made models for the printer to print. You see, they've got this little app called Bamboo Handy where they have a ton of models available, already made for you to use and print. The library is incredibly extensive, thousands of models, and not just RPG minis, of course, but with almost anything under the sun that you would possibly ever want to print. So yeah, I've recently started a new campaign with my home group, right? And I'm playing an armor artificer. I haven't taken the time to find or buy a mini for them yet. I've just been kind of muddling through with old stuff that I already had, but I went on to Bamboo Handy, searched for Armor Artificer, scrolled until I found a mini that represented the image that I had in my head for my character almost perfectly, honestly, and simply used the app to tell my printer to print that model. The printer said, okay, and 3 hours later, voila, here she is. All ready to paint if I want, with really surprisingly great detail. It was seriously the easiest thing in the world. And so now, naturally, I've got my entire table sending me models for their character, and my DM is making monster requests too, and it is so awesome. Oh, and the next thing that I'm gonna do, buy colored filament, because yeah, this baby prints in color too. Painting minis is great, but super time consuming, right? In the end, if you wanted to buy the dozens or hundreds of minis for all of your characters, NPCs, and monsters, and terrain features, it would take so much time and energy and thousands of dollars, right? The A1 printer, $3.99. And from that point on, your only cost is the filament, and that's pretty cheap. Now, you can basically have unlimited minis and models and terrain features for that one price. Just pick the model you want from the app, push a button, go watch a movie, and come back with a new mini to add to your collection. It's so great. It's super quiet. I just have it running in my office here while I work, and it doesn't bother me at all. And yeah, the app actually has a maker lab for those of you who want to design your own models. So on the off chance that you can't find what you need in the app library, well, you can just make it yourself, no problem. So hey, check out Bamboo Labs and bring to life whatever you need and can imagine for your game. I've got a link in the pinned comment in the video description. I'd love it if you'd use that so that they know I sent you. Huge thanks to Bamboo Labs, not only for your support of the channel, but for making my tabletop games more immersive than ever. I am so excited. All right, let's get back to the build. All right, at level 1 for our starting class, yes, I'm gonna say let's go Artificer. You could start either way, right? Start Rogue or start Artificer. It kind of depends mostly on what your party needs. If they need someone to act as a scout and a lockpicker, etc., then sure, starting Rogue is fine. Damage-wise, I think we're gonna be better off building up a base of Artificer first, and also on a character that will be casting spells, yeah, it's nice to start Artificer thanks to their Constitution saving throw proficiency that will benefit our concentration checks, right? But if you want to start Rogue, go for it. As for our species here, I think I want to go human today. Are we human? Yes, we are. For two main reasons. One, for that extra origin feat humans get, which is just awesome. And two, because humans can be either medium or small sized. And today we're going small, which will come in handy a little later. For our background, as always, I say, take an old one or a custom one if you can, but if not, Sage will work just fine since that gives the ability score increases that we want and one of the origin feats, which would be Magic Initiate Wizard in this case, so that we could learn a couple of wizard cantrips, always useful, and a first level wizard spell to cast once per day for free. And yeah, I'm taking Find Familiar here so that we can have a nice scout, and also so that we can use our familiar to get us advantage on our first attack. If you can't use familiars in this way at your table, or if your DM has a tendency to kill your familiars all the time, even if they're an owl with flight and flyby, right, then I'd strongly consider going Hill Giant Goliath so that we could fairly easily knock enemies prone, which will also help us get advantage, right? Assuming we're melee, more on that later. Anyways, as for the second feat, yeah, Lucky is my favorite for on-demand advantage on, any D20 test, a proficiency bonus times per day. Other feats are also great, so feel free to take something else if you want. I just really like advantage. For our starting ability scores, I assume we go the point buy method as always and say, let's get a 15 intelligence, take a +2 there, a 13 constitution and a +1, a 14 dexterity, and then a 13 strength. We are a wee bit mad for the build here today. Not too bad. We do need that strength though for something later, but we'll get to that. As for our starting equipment, I'm going to say, let's grab just some scale mail and a light crossbow probably for now. I'm going to be changing that up at level 3, but for now I do think we'll probably be better off staying at range. Alternatively, grab a shield and like a one-handed D6 simple weapon for slightly less damage if you want to be in melee. As an Artificer 1, then, we get Tinker's Magic, first off, which basically lets us magically create some adventuring gear a few times per day. That can be pretty useful, honestly. Then we also get spells. And we for sure want to grab True Strike here, as that's going to let us make a weapon attack when we cast the spell, but use our intelligence modifier to hit and damage and deal radiant damage instead of the weapon's normal damage, right? Both nice things. And yeah, it works on a ranged weapon. Beyond that, I would grab Guidance for a nice D4 to ability checks for you or your friends. Absorb Elements is a nice way to use our reaction to gain resistance to an instance of elemental damage that you've taken, right? Cure Wounds is a great heal option, and probably Fairy Fire for concentration right now. It's a nice way to debuff multiple enemies to give advantage on all attacks against them. You know who will always have advantage on attacks against me? Doesn't even make any sense. My channel members and patrons. Let me give them a quick shout out, if you don't mind. You guys, thank you so much for your support. It means the world to me. This channel does not exist without you. Thank you. If you are not a member or a patron, I'd love it if you'd consider becoming one. There is a button down there, it says join. You click on it or check the link to my Patreon in the video description, and it'll tell you about all the perks that I offer to members and patrons, including access to the library of write-ups that I do for each of my builds, so you could more easily and quickly recreate the build yourself, access to the community Discord server, and access to the monthly Q&A hangout sessions that we have, which I'm doing tomorrow. Always my favorite day of the month. I give all of my perks to all of my channel members, regardless of what level they sign up at, as long as it's silver or above, which is like a couple bucks a month. I just ask that you pay, what you think it's worth and what you feel you can afford. But if you don't think it's worth anything, that's okay. I'm glad that you're here watching, liking, subscribing. Those are great ways to support the channel too, so thank you. At level 2, we get Replicate Magic Item, which just says that we can straight up make a bunch of different magic items from a list, and that list includes common magic items that aren't potions, scrolls, or cursed, right? And yeah, all it takes to do so is our action. No other resources required. Sometimes people forget that, I think. We can know 4 magic item plans, but can only have 2 of them active at a time. For now, at this level, I'd say grab the Repeating Shot weapon if you're going to be ranged. It gives us a +1 to our ranged weapon and essentially lets us ignore the ammunition and loading properties of a ranged weapon. If you want to be melee, take +1 weapon instead and a +1 shield, I think. But either way, you might prefer to just make some Gleaming Half-Plate armor. Gleaming Half-Plate is a common magic item, and it's not a potion, a scroll, or cursed, right? It's just half-plate that never gets dirty. And since half-plate costs 750 gold, At level 2, you probably don't have enough money to buy it yet, so this would be the same bonus to our armor class as it would taking a +1 shield, right? Going from scale mail to half plate. Anyways, at level 3, we get our Artificer subclass, and what do you think we're going with? I don't know why I always act like it's going to be a surprise when I give all of those potential titles. I honestly think there would be 2 options that would work really great here. Armorer with the Infiltrator model was actually my original plan, and I still think it would be a great idea if you wanted. You get to wear heavy armor without needing a high strength to avoid the debuff. Infiltrator would keep us from having disadvantage on stealth checks in plate, and also let us make a really cool lightning blast as a weapon attack. But yeah, I think I prefer Battlesmith here for a few reasons, which we will get into as we go. So, first off, as a Battlesmith, we get Tools of the Trade, which just gives us Smith's Tools proficiency and says that crafting a weapon takes us half the usual time. Nice if we've got everything we need to do that, including, the time. And it might save us an Artificer magic item eventually once we've got it crafted, so we could use that on something else. We also get Battle Ready, which says that when we attack with a magic weapon, we can use our intelligence modifier for the +2 hit and damage. That is awesome. And it also says that we have proficiency in martial weapons. So yes, at this point we could swap that light crossbow and make the returning weapon like a musket or a heavy crossbow for a little more damage. Or if we're going melee, swap that one-handed weapon to maybe a maul or a greatsword. But you know what we're doing, don't you? You saw Randall's artwork. We're swapping it out for a lance, because the final feature for Battlesmiths at this level is our trusty Steel Defender, the build's namesake. And yeah, we're gonna mount up. So the Steel Defender is a medium-sized construct of our design, and we can choose what it looks like, including if it has 2 or 4 legs, etc. This means we could, sure, make it take on the body of like a Mastiff or maybe a medium-sized Battle Cat or sure, a Chocobo or whatever, right? And since we are a small-sized creature, that means yes, we could use our Steel Defender as a mount. You certainly don't have to do this if you don't want to, but there are lots of advantages for doing so. First off, being mounted lets us use a lance, which is a heavy weapon with reach that does a d10 of damage with just one hand, right? Meaning, yeah, we could still equip a shield, and while sure, using a maul or a greatsword or even a battle axe would get us slightly more damage, it's hard for me to imagine trading a +2 to our armor class from a shield, more if we make the shield magical, right? For like 1 or 1.5 damage per swing, Plus we have reach. Go that route if you want to, use a maul or whatever, but I'm gonna assume the lance and shield route because it's fun and it's cool, and attacking with reach is nice. And having a mount is great because it might give you some additional movement, since a controlled mount, anyways, can use their action every turn to dash or disengage. That said, we probably won't be doing that with our mount until later, because the nice thing about the Steel Defender is that we can use our bonus action to have them use their action to, like instead of dashing or disengaging, right, make an attack. And it hits decently hard. It's 1d8 +2 plus our intelligence modifier. Maybe best of all, they can really help our own survivability, since they have that sweet deflect attack feature that lets them use their reaction when an enemy attacks someone within 5 feet of them, the defender, to cause that attack to have disadvantage. And if we're mounted on them, we're always going to be within 5 feet of them. And so at least one attack per round could potentially be made against us with disadvantage. That's some nice survivability for us. Now, it's true that doing this might open up our defender to attacks, right? But, they're decently tanky. An AC of 12 plus our intelligence modifier, hit points equal to 5 plus 5 times our artificer level, a self-heal, solid saving throws, and some nice immunities. And if they die, all it costs to bring them back is a spell slot and a 1-minute timer. So, hey, if they're soaking up attacks and damage that might have otherwise gone to a party member, that's a huge win for you and your team. Finally, at this level, we get some Artificer spells, Heroism, and Shield. They're both fantastic. With Heroism, it lets us constantly throw on temporary hit points for either ourselves or an ally. And I mean, hey, no reason you couldn't put that on your defender if they're often getting targeted, right? And best of all, the Shield spell for an amazing +5 bump to our armor class with our reaction when we get hit by an attack. We are insanely tanky at this point, more even than the Armorer Infiltrator would have been with heavy armor, I think. At level 4, we get our first general feat, and though it pains me slightly to do so, if we're prioritizing damage here over everything, which you are absolutely free not to do, of course, but I am, and so I'm gonna go ahead and take the Great Weapon Master feat here. It's a bummer because it both requires a 13 strength and bumps our strength and only our strength by 1, right? Which will put it at 14 for us. That's just a stat that doesn't do a lot for us on this build otherwise. Regardless, the feat itself is just really good. It says that the attacks that we make with our attack action only get to add our proficiency bonus to the damage if we're using a heavy weapon. And yes, this would apply to heavy crossbows and longbows as well, since they're heavy. And yes, to the lance too, even if we're just using it with one hand while we're mounted. And yeah, that's a solid damage bump, nearly equal to, say, the Hex or Hunter's Mark spells by next level anyways, but without requiring a spell or concentration or our bonus action to cast it or transfer it, right? And it scales really nicely. If you'd rather take a half intelligence feat instead, then you should, and you shouldn't feel bad about it. But yes, we'd get more damage out of this than we would from getting our intelligence to 18, so that's what I'm gonna do. Especially since at level 5, we get extra attack, right? So that we can make 2 attacks with our action and enjoy that proficiency bump to the damage on both of them, which, yeah, would go up to 3 now, right? We also get 2nd level spells here. Battlesmiths get Shining Smite and Warding Bond for free. Again, both really solid options. Shining Smite for a little bonus damage and the potential to blind an enemy if we want to give up the spell slot and the bonus action to do it. That's especially nice if we get a critical hit, or if we don't have any other way to get advantage on our target, right? And then, yeah, Warding Bond, best tank spell in the game. And how cool would it be to just, selfishly, admittedly, put Warding Bond on your defender, who is your mount, so that they have a better armor class and better saving throws, sharing the damage between you when they do take damage, while they are making you harder to hit via their deflect attack feature. It's just some grade A synergy where you're both doing a fantastic job of making each other more durable, and I love it. Feels to me like the best pet class in all of D&D, frankly. Sorry, Beastmaster. And you could also cast Aid on the both of you now too, right? To heal and raise your max hit points, though your other companions might start to get annoyed at this point with all of the buffs you're giving your Steel Defender. I'd also consider a Lesser Restoration here for a nice cure-all. Web is a great AoE control option. That's probably the thing you should be concentrating on at this point, I would say. But then I'd also definitely consider Homunculus Servant here as well. Remember, the Homunculus is a spell now, and it just creates yet another pet. I mean, with your Defender, your Familiar, and this, you are truly like a clockwork menagerie right now. But the great thing about Homunculus Servant is that you cast the spell as a ritual, so you don't have to spend a spell slot, right? And then the Homunculus just lasts until it dies or until you make another one. It is a little bit squishy, but it can fly, and it has a 30-foot range on its attack. So I would think that most of the time, at most tables, it should be able to survive for most of a battle. But again, if your enemies are spending actions and resources to take out this thing that's doing 1d6 plus 2 damage, that's still a win for your team. And I mean, they have evasion to help them avoid AoE attacks, right? And if they still die anyways, we can bring them back as soon as we've got time to redo the ritual. They can even use their reaction to deliver a spell with a range of touch that you cast, just like your Familiar. Yeah, pretty dang useful. And I will assume that we've got them active when I crunch numbers here in a minute. At level 6, we get Magic Item Tinkerer, which gives us some nice versatility. 3 features in one here. First, we're told that with a bonus action, we can touch a magic item that has charges that we created with our Replicate Magic Item ability, spend a spell slot, and then add charges to it, equal to the level of spell slot expended. We might want to use this later, but it's pretty expensive. I'd really only use this on super powerful charge-based magic items. Also, as a bonus action, we can drain a replicated magic item to restore a spell slot just once per day. And finally, as an action, touch a replicated magic item to transform it into a different replicated magic item that we know the plans for. Again, once per day. But better yet, yes, now we get access to new magic item plans, right? And we can have up to 3 replicated items active at a time, too. So at this point, I would want to have +1 armor if you didn't already have that or better from your adventuring. And I'd want to swap my +1 weapon for either a dazzling weapon, which is also +1, but sheds bright and dim light. Remember, humans don't have dark vision, right? Or maybe the weapon of warning. It's not +1, but it would give you and your entire party advantage on initiative rolls, which, let's be honest, is probably stronger, all things considered, right? I'll assume we've got a +1 when I crunch numbers, but make a different choice if you want. Finally, yeah, I think I'd go with a +1 shield at this point, assuming that you're going the lance route. But if you're not, I'd probably grab the Mind Sharpener item. That thing is just so dang good and really helps us, make those concentration checks when we otherwise would fail. And, in fact, you might want to do that instead of a +1 shield, right? It could be more valuable than +1 to your armor class, depending on what you may or may not be concentrating on. Eventually, we'll for sure want to have that. Finally, I would be sure to learn the plans for the Wand of Magic Missiles and the Wand of Web, but yeah, we're not going to be using them just yet. All right. At level 6, it's time for our first damage report. So let's go over what combat would ideally look like for us here. It's pretty straightforward. Every round, you're basically just charging your target from the back of your trusty clockwork steed and making 2 lance attacks with your action. I'll assume we're getting advantage from our familiar on the first one and using a luck point for the second, but again, if you can't use your familiar to do this, I'd consider going Goliath, like I said. Alas, Goliaths can't be small, that would be weird, which means no mount, but if you were a hill giant, you could use a luck point on the first attack and try and topple them, so you'd have advantage on your second, right? Anyways, we would be adding 3 from our intelligence and 3 from our Great Weapon Master feat to each hit, yeah? Then with our bonus action, we'd just have our Steel Defender attack for a 1d8 plus 5 at this level, and also our Homunculus is going to get a 1d6 plus 2 hit in, potentially, though neither the Steel Defender nor Homunculus are going to be making their attacks with advantage, right? Feel free to throw a Shining Smite in there if you feel confident that your target will take 2 or more rounds to go down, so that you can enjoy that advantage, for more than just 1 round. Or sure, cast Fairy Fire or Web in the hopes of getting all attackers advantage on these enemies and otherwise, debuffing or controlling. Definitely not a bad call. I'm just going to assume that we're going all out for damage here just to see what we could do in that case, right? But I'm not saying that's what you should do every round. Anyways, under the above assumptions, averaged over a 4-round combat encounter, against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would do 39 damage per round on average, and against a 15 AC, it would be 32 DPR. And that's not bad. Level 6, 30 to 40 damage per round. It's not amazing necessarily when compared to other builds that I've done to date that were just focused on, damage above all. It's kind of middle of tier 3 by comparison. #Artificer life. But hey, again, we have incredible durability, nice mobility, tons of allies to help us soak up damage and keep us and our party safe, and some solid control and support potential should we choose to use it. Let's see how we can build on it, shall we? Because at level 7, yes, now that we've got our most important Artificer features, including some nice magic item potential, it's time to start taking those rogue levels, right? Meaning we would be a rogue 1 here. Now, my question is, why is your Artificer suddenly interested in the fine art of thievery? Are they just going through an emo phase like Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 3? Have they suddenly been tasked with a quest to infiltrate a stronghold or capture a powerful magic item for their patron? Maybe it doesn't have to be quite that complicated. Perhaps they have a companion or a friendly NPC who's really quick with their hands, and they've been studying them and thinking, if I could learn to be a little more nimble and quick, I might be able to make better use of some of these toys I've been learning how to create, right? Hey, friendly knave, teach me your skills. Anyways, as a Rogue One, we learn Thieves' Cant, that special coded language that rogues can use to send messages to one another. And then we get Expertise, which lets us double our proficiency bonus in 2 skills that we are proficient in. I'm going to say go ahead and PYF here, pick your favorite, but it feels like one of them should be Arcana, maybe, on an Artificer. No? We also get some much appreciated weapon masteries here, and while the Lance has Topple, which might really help both us and our defender get advantage more reliably, we've got a little problem in that we also get Sneak Attack here at Rogue One, and that only is going to add extra damage to our attack if we're making the attack with a finesse or ranged weapon, and none of those heavy melee weapons count, right? Meaning, yeah, it's time to make a switch to the heavy crossbow if we weren't using one already. And I don't feel bad about that at all, honestly. Even though we have some nice defenses, staying at range would generally be even better for our survivability, to say nothing of the freedom to pick our targets more easily and even hit flying enemies or people up on a ledge, etc., right? And with a heavy crossbow, we don't even take a damage hit versus the lance, at least. So yeah, Time to switch magic items to a repeating heavy crossbow if you weren't already using one. At level 8, we would be a rogue 2, and that means we get cunning action. This lets us dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action. Probably not something we'll be using much if we're riding on our steel defender, but it'll be nice when we need it. Maybe especially if our trusty steed goes down in combat, right? But then we get to level 9 and rogue 3. First of all, we get steady aim here. This just says that, we can have advantage on our next attack this round if we use our bonus action and don't move before or after. Admittedly, this is a lot easier to use when we're mounted, since it's not our movement that we need to use in order to still move around the battlefield, right? We're just using their move speed. But I am loath to give up our bonus action, especially since we also get our subclass here. And yes, we're going Thief, of course. And Thieves get 2 features. Second story work, which gives us a climb speed equal to our speed. Again, nice if we need it, and lets us use our dexterity instead of our strength when determining our jump distance. Haha, sucker. Our strength is just as good as our dexterity. Wait, who's the sucker? But then, of course, the main reason that we're here, the thing we're trying to build around, fast hands, which says that we can use our bonus action to pick a lock, disarm a trap, pick a pocket, or above all, take the utilize action, including using a magic item that requires an action to use. Sneak attack gets bumped to 2d6 at this level, and it's all just in time for our next damage report. Okay, since last check, our tactics have changed quite a bit. At this point, we're making ranged attacks from our Steel Defender, and the nice thing is that since we're not using our bonus action to have the Steel Defender attack anymore, they're just a controlled mount who can use their action to dash or disengage, further helping us and them stay safe, right? But then, yes, on our turn, we'd be firing 2 heavy crossbow bolts, and then using our bonus action to throw out some, you guessed it, magic missiles. So yeah, you're going to want to swap out that +1 shield you may have been using for a Wand of Magic Missiles now. Or, sure, Wand of Web might be the better choice here, but we're going for damage, so I'll assume magic missiles. Go Web if you'd rather. I'm sure your team will be delighted. The wand is pretty cool, though. It has 7 charges, and we can, as a thief, use our bonus action to spend up to 3 charges at a time to throw out magic missiles from it as per the spell, right? 1 charge gets us the spell at first level, so 3 missiles. 2 charges gets us 4, as if it were a 2nd level spell, etc. So yeah, not super efficient to burn more charges, but it would do a little more damage, because each dart does 1d4 plus 1, right? And it automatically hits. You don't have to make a roll against armor class. The wand regenerates 1d6 plus 1 expended charges at dawn, but of course we could just make a new fully charged one after a long rest if we wanted, and can recharge it with our bonus action in a spell slot thanks to our charge magic item feature. Yeah, I'm not going to assume that we're doing that in combat, since it wouldn't be super efficient damage-wise, but I will assume that it's fully loaded and that we're using 2 charges on the first 3 rounds of combat and then just 1 on the 4th round. Again, just to see how far we can stretch this thing. Now, I will say that the damage that Magic Missile does isn't that much better than the damage we were getting from our Steel Defender against easy-to-hit targets. But the nice thing about the spell is that it just automatically hits, right? Each missile does 1d4 plus 1 damage regardless of the enemy's armor class, so as that enemy AC gets higher, yeah, the wand attack looks a lot better than the Steel Defender attack by comparison. Other than that, just remember to add that 2d6 sneak attack damage to our first hit, and sure, I'll still assume that we're getting a little attack from our homunculus every round as well, just for fun. But at this level then, against enemies with a 10 armor class, we would do 54 damage per round, and against a 16 AC, it would be 49 DPR. Over 4 rounds. And that's feeling a little bit better. Still not blowing the roof off of the damage meters or anything, but a very solid improvement, especially against harder to hit enemies. And that, again, it's the best thing about Magic Missile, right? Our damage curve is now a lot flatter as the enemies get harder to hit, and that always feels nice. At this level though, compared to other DPR builds that I've done to date, we're more like top of tier 3, maybe almost bottom of tier 2 by comparison, so some solid scaling while simultaneously picking up some nice roguish utility. Okay, so where do we go from here? At level 10, I figure we've got 2 main options. Stick with Rogue to keep that sneak attack damage scaling, among other things, or go back to Artificer to pick up more and better spells, among other things, including later on better magic item options, right? It feels like a lot more fun, doesn't it? I vote we go back to our tinkering ways. Making us an Artificer 7, and that means we would get Flash of Genius. This is an awesome defensive ability. It says that when we or an ally within 30 feet fail an ability check or a saving throw, intelligence modifier times per day, we can use our reaction to add our intelligence modifier to the roll, potentially causing it to succeed. We will start doing that at the very next level, because at level 11, we'd be an Artificer 8, and yes, we get another feat. I think I would probably go Fey Touched here. To get our intelligence to 18, but it's not a must-take feat by any means. It's not a no-brainer. Normally, you'd think Warcaster here, right? But on an Artificer who can get that Mind Sharpener magic item, and who has Flash of Genius, and who has Constitution saving throw proficiency, it feels a lot less necessary than on most caster builds. Now, I don't know if you've got Mind Sharpener at this point, but probably, I think. You can have 3 items right now, right? And they're likely the Returning Heavy Crossbow, +1 armor, and the Mind Sharpener, yeah? So assuming you've got that, which just lets you automatically succeed on a failed save no matter how much you fail it by, a few times per day, I'd probably take a feat other than Warcaster. But Warcaster is still worth considering, especially if you have a ton of combat encounters per day at your table, right? I just really like Fey Touched, as it lets us know the Misty Step spell, always useful, and cast it once per day for free, and use our spell slots for it otherwise, as well as any other first level enchantment or divination spell. Meaning we could grab Bless for a solid party buff, or Silvery Barbs for a solid make your DM and the Silvery Barbs mob hate you option, or other fun things as well. Whatever you do, just make sure you get that intelligence up to 18. At level 12, we would be an Artificer 9, and that means as a Battlesmith we get Arcane Jolt, which is just a little bit of scaling for us that I really appreciate, and think we don't see enough of on martial casters, especially, even half casters. Not talking paladins. Nerf those guys. Just kidding, don't. I love pallies. Anyways, this just says that when we or our Steel Defender hit a target with an attack, we can do an extra 2d6 of damage once per turn, limited to our intelligence modifier times per day, or we can heal someone for 2d6 as well. Hooray for versatility. We also, of course, get 3rd level spells here. Finally. And, Battlesmiths keep getting bangers. Aura of Vitality, one of the best healing spells in the game, especially for, between combat top-offs, right? And the super solid Conjure Barrage, which you could argue is as good as Fireball or Lightning Bolt. Some might even say better. Especially compared to Lightning Bolt, right? Because it does 5d8 damage, slightly less on average than either of those 2 more famous AoE spells, but in a massive 60-foot cone, which could potentially hit more enemies, and dealing force damage, which is way less likely to see enemy resistance and immunity. And by way less likely, I mean there are 0 monsters in the monster manual that have resistance or immunity to force damage. Great for our magic missiles too, right? Sure, some monsters have resistance to all spell damage, but those are super rare. Anyways, spell is awesome. Beyond that, sure, grab Blink if you think you need even more defense, or Catnap for a quick short rest. Dispel Magic and Fly are always good to have, and Revivify too, of course, for some emergency death backup, right? We've had an emergency death. The one spell that I'm finally going to assume that we're actually concentrating on in combat, Haste. There are a lot of haste haters out there, and I get it. It takes an action to cast, and it has an incredibly debilitating, you're incapacitated when the spell ends rider tied to it. But, as I so often say, I frankly love living dangerously, and on this, Artificer Thief build, I think it especially makes sense. 1, because the extra action that it grants that we would be using to take the attack action is technically called the attack action, and even if it only grants 1 extra attack on a build using Great Weapon Master, that's pretty dang potent. But then 2, because as an Artificer, we've got the Mind Sharpener, meaning we are way less likely to drop concentration on the spell mid-combat than just about anybody. So I'm not afraid, and heck, it also bumps our armor class by 2 and gives us advantage on our dexterity saves. I love it, and I'm not sorry. At level 13, we would be an Artificer 10, and that means we get Magic Item Adept, which lets us attune up to 4 magic items at once instead of the usual 3, and this is, depending on your table, one of the Artificer's strongest features. Full stop. Especially since we now get new 10th level magic item plans, right? And can have 4 items active. Now, unfortunately, there's not really a great upgrade to our Wand of Magic Missiles on this list here at level 10, right? That said, we can now craft any wondrous item of uncommon rarity that isn't cursed. I couldn't really find anything that I think I would replace the Wand of Magic Missiles with as my bonus action. Let me know if you think you've got something. I mean, I looked at every single one of those magic items in D&D Beyond. That said, I would plan on crafting some bracers of archery, no doubt, to give us a +2 to hit with our weapon. That said, it only adds that +2 to attacks with short and long bows, meaning, yeah, we'd be swapping weapons once again to give ourselves a repeating longbow now instead of heavy crossbow. But, giving up 1 damage per hit on average by doing this is way worth it to pick up a +2 to hit, no question. As for the rest, sure. If you've found or crafted some magic armor of your own, feel free to use one of your items for like a cloak of protection. It's always a good one. Anyways, have fun with it. Lots of cool, fun stuff to pick from there. All right, at level 13, it is time for our next damage report. Since last check, things have changed fairly significantly for us again. Now on round 1, I'm going to assume that we're casting haste with our action, making just 1 attack, right? Because we can still make that extra attack that haste grants us, and then throwing out those magic missiles. And in case you're wondering if we can do this, cast 2 spells on our turn, we should be fine since casting magic missiles from the wand isn't technically using a spell slot and so shouldn't interfere with the no using multiple spell slots per turn rule. I'm also assuming that some of you might be questioning whether we can be making attacks with a 2-handed weapon and using a wand on our turn. It should be fine. Remember, we have 1 free action per turn that can be used to take out or stow an item, right? Among other things. So on round 1, we attack, then free action, draw the wand, and fire with our bonus action. Round 2, we fire the wand with our bonus action first, then free action, stow it, and make our attacks. Remember, the bonus action doesn't have to come after the action or anything, right? And so yeah, we just rinse and repeat. Sometimes we're drawing it, sometimes we're stowing it. Anyways, yes, on subsequent rounds, we would be making 3 attacks per turn thanks to haste, and otherwise doing the same things, right? Yes, we've swapped to a longbow now, reducing the average damage per hit by 1, but gained a +2 to hit from bracers of archery, which will be better for our numbers against all but the lowest enemy armor classes. Other than that, we've just increased our intelligence and our proficiency bonus by 1, which will give us a slight bump, and picked up some nice potential utility, AoE, and support options. But against enemies with a 10 armor class here, now we would on average do 71 damage per round, and against a 17 AC, it would be 68 DPR. And at first glance, that doesn't look like a huge lift compared to last check, but that's only true versus those very easiest to hit targets, right? That bump feels kind of smallish, but if you start looking at the 20 armor class enemies and up, is a 50% or better jump compared to last check. So yeah, still some really solid scaling here, especially against enemies that we are most likely to be fighting at these levels. Still, our damage is pretty good, not amazing. Compared to other damage focused builds at this level, we're kind of closer to the bottom of tier 3 here. Still bringing lots of other things with us to the table, as artificers always do, but just, manage your expectations for damage and revel in the fun and versatility that you bring. But things are about to get really good damage-wise, right? Because at level 14, we would be an Artificer 11, and that means we get the spell storing item feature, which is, yes, undoubtedly the Artificer's strongest feature now, as it lets us take a weapon or a spellcasting focus and put 2 times our intelligence modifier number of castings of any 1st, 2nd, or 3rd level Artificer spell inside of it, and then let that spell be cast from the item, either by us or by anyone else we give this to. And yes, the play here for most people would be to give this item to their homunculus or their familiar or whoever, and then have them use their action to cast for us, Conjure Barrage, 10 times in a day. And that's just really, really strong. And this is perhaps the sad truth about this build. As fun as going Thief for a bonus action magic missile is, at character level 11, if you would have just stayed Artificer, right, and beelined for this spell storing item, probably would have been better off from character level 11 until now at least damage-wise. That's assuming, of course, that your DM allows you to use your homunculus to cast a spell from your spell storing item. And if they're playing rules as written, they should, but that doesn't mean that they will. And, maybe more to the point, we're assuming here our homunculus, who's suddenly throwing out 5d8 force damage in a 60-foot cone every round, has the same capacity to stay alive as they did before, right? Yes, if they weren't regularly getting targeted before, they surely will be now. Though, hey, with flight and with how huge the range on Conjured Barrage is, I think there's a decent chance that they can stay in the fight. Especially if you start buffing them instead of your Steel Defender, right? Who probably doesn't need it as much anymore if we're attacking from range, and they can be disengaging or dashing. Maybe we even upcast the homunculus spell to help them be a little more durable. And again, I just love the idea of enemies blowing spells and attacks on this little, clockwork dragonfly bobbing and weaving above the battlefield, raining down death, who has flight, evasion, maybe aid and warding bond on them, right? Why won't this thing die? Meaning that you and your allies are eliminating those enemies with impunity and laughing at their frustration. So yes, how well this actually works is going to vary pretty widely from table to table, and I'm okay with that. I am going to assume that going forward, our homunculus is doing 5d8 damage on their turn, half on a save, instead of the 1d6 plus 2 they used to do. But yes, know your table, talk this over with your DM, and hey, if they only get one shot of the spell off before dying, it's still worth it, right? Unless the enemy picks up the item from your dead homunculus before you or your familiar or your defender or other ally can get to it, and then they start throwing out Conjure Barrage against you and your friends. Actually, you know what? I won't lie, I freaking love the idea of that happening once in a while. I love my high risk, high reward play. What can I say? Up those stakes, baby. Bring it on. And sure, if this tactic won't really work very well at your table for whatever reason, well, good news. You can put 8 uses of Aura of Vitality in that spell storing item instead, and now no one will ever need to heal between combat encounters again, right? Okay, let's move on. At level 15, we would be an Artificer 12. That means we get another feat, and yes, that means we can finally bump our intelligence, cap it at 20. That took forever. We could have gone Rogue 4 like a long time ago, right? If we were really concerned about that. I just wanted to make sure that we hit Artificer 14 by the end of the build, which for me is always level 17, so yeah. Anyways, at level 16, we would be an Artificer 13. That means we get 4th level spells. Battlesmiths get Aura of Purity and Fire Shield for free, both nice options, but beyond that, I'm just going to say PYF here. And then finally, for us, again, at level 17, we'd be an Artificer 14, so we could get first the Advanced Artifice feature, which says that we can attune up to 5 magic items now. Amazing. And regain a spent use of Flash of Genius once per short rest, nice for defense and or support. More importantly though, yes, we get new magic item plans and a 5th replicated magic item that we can have active. At this point, I would be swapping that +1 armor for +2 if I didn't have something better, right? But there are actually a lot of other things to consider here. First of all, let's talk weapons. As much as I love the repeating shot magic item, it has one massive flaw, and it's that it doesn't scale, right? It never gets better than a +1, and there are no +2 or +3 versions of it in the game currently. If your DM will allow something like that to exist in the game and give you access to it, great. But if not, I think I would honestly go back to the lance now. Or, sure, another heavy melee weapon. Why? Simple. At Artificer 14, Flame Tongue Weapon is among the plans that we get access to, and that works for any melee weapon, but only melee, right? It adds a 2d6 to every single hit. And yeah, giving up what would be a +3 to hit from a +1 weapon plus bracers of archery would hurt, and worst of all, giving up 2d6 of sneak attack damage once per turn really sucks and feels terrible that we have 3 levels of rogue and we're never using sneak attack. But 2d6 more damage on every hit from a Flame Tongue weapon is better than 2d6 once per turn, right? And it would more than make up for the loss of hit chance and sneak attack, unless you're fighting enemies with a 25 armor class specifically. So unless you've got a weapon that's even better than a Flame Tongue weapon, and you might, we're at level 17 after all, then I'll assume that we're going back to Lance, but this time it's a Flame Tongue Lance. And you know what else I'd plan on getting here? Now that we can replicate rare, wondrous items that aren't cursed, two things, actually. One, the Crown of the Wrathbringer. This is an awesome item. It says that when we hit with an attack, we can spend a hit die and add that in psychic damage. No limit per turn or anything here. We're just limited to how many hit dice we have, so I'm just going to use it every attack. We've got Aura of Vitality, why not? You can also use the item once per day to cast the Fear spell without concentration, which is awesome. But then, yes, of course, I would want to also replicate a necklace of fireballs, which will have 6 or 7 beads that we can just use a magic action, or for us, a bonus action, right, to pluck a bead and toss it up to 60 feet away for a level 3 fireball. Or again, a higher level fireball if we throw multiple beads for an upcast version. I'm just gonna assume that we're going like 2 beads per turn until round 4, where we would only do 1, just like I was assuming with the Wand of Magic Missiles. When I crunch numbers, though, yeah, if you have more than 1 combat encounter per day on the regular, I would just use 1. It's a lot more efficient. But speaking of number crunching, at level 17, it is time for our final damage report. Okay, once again, since last check, our tactics have changed quite a bit, and I'm not gonna lie, it's one thing that I kind of love about this build. It'll never feel stale, that's for sure. So, at this point, yes, I'm assuming that we're back to the Lance and Shield, but with a Flame Tongue Lance, meaning each hit will add 2d6, but we'll also be adding a d8 from our hit dice to each swing, thanks to our Crown of the Wrathbringer. We did lose Sneak Attack, but thankfully we've got Arcane Jolt, so that's kind of a wash anyways. Also, our Homunculus is potentially throwing out 5d8 of damage on their turn. Now, most likely to multiple enemies, but since I haven't been building this thing as a multi-target damage dealer, nor crunching numbers under that assumption, I'm just going to keep calculating numbers for a single target. Just know that the total damage that you do is probably going to be higher than what I'm about to report on, right? Unless your Homunculus is getting taken out regularly in the fight early on. And then with our bonus action, yes, we're just chucking fireballs for 8 or 9d6 of damage. Again, I'm just going to calculate for a single target, but all of a sudden, this build just turned into like an incredibly powerful AoE nuker, if you want them to be, right? I'm going to assume that the enemy has a 50% chance to save here against these spells as usual, right, for half damage. Beyond that, we've kept our intelligence now, we've bumped our proficiency bonus, and picked up some nice potential utility and support from 4th level spells, among other things, but averaged over 4 rounds now against an enemy with a 10 armor class, we would do 123 damage per round, and against an 18 AC, it would be 117 DPR. All right. That's what I'm talking about. We finally broke the century mark, and that is double the damage that we were doing 4 short levels ago. And again, that's only against 1 target, right? If we were hitting just 3 enemies with the barrage and the fireball, it would be closer to 200 damage on average, maybe a little more, depending on their AC. With most of that damage going to, yes, a single enemy. That's pretty freaking amazing. So let's break this all down with some final thoughts here. The tier score for this build, if you take the damage they do against every armor class that we calculate for at each of the 4 damage reports and just average it into one big number, we end up with a 63, which would put them almost right at the top of tier 3, meaning slightly, ever so slightly below average compared to all other single target damage dealers that I've built to date. But that number doesn't tell the whole story, does it? It never does. There are lots of things to think about with this build at the end here. The thing that stands out to me the most, though, it might be just how hard it is to know when to take those rogue levels. The whole point of the build is to make the best use of fast hands as possible. And in that case, then the route we went makes the most sense, I think. Unless you wanted to just start with 3 levels of rogue. But yeah, like I said, delaying that spell storing item, to say nothing of the level 10 and level 14 magic items among everything else, 3rd level spells and haste if you're going to use it, right? It frankly almost never feels like a good time to duck out of Artificer until like level 14 maybe. But if you wait that long, now it's just a battlesmith who took some rogue levels late game, and most of us never even see those levels anyway in our campaign, right? And so, in the end, maybe what this has solidified for me more than anything is that Thief Fast Hands sounds a lot cooler than it actually is in practice. Well, okay, That's not actually true. I mean, on the one hand, sure, this is the second build now where I've tried to build around that cool bonus action magic item thing, and both times it's just felt a little unsatisfying to me. Either unreliable in the case of the Doom Scroller, or maybe like not worth trying to build around until very late game in the case of this build today. Of course, as always, how it might feel for you at your table could vary widely, right? You might have a DM who's handing out magic items like hotcakes, or who makes it pretty easy to just buy or craft whatever you want if you've got the gold. At that table, yeah, taking those thief levels is going to feel freaking amazing. At other tables, though, maybe not quite so much. Of course, there are plenty of cool things that rogues bring outside of damage, and I do like the idea of this artificer rogue who has loads of utility added to their already impressive versatility, as well as, sure, a little more damage from sneak, and then a fun bonus action magic item use once you finally get there. At level 9 and 10, the build would feel really cool and fun and rewarding, I think. And, I mean, hey, for a lot of us, our campaign might be ending right around there, so we're not really missing anything. But at levels like 11 through 14, if your campaign kept going at those levels, I worry that you might regret taking those rogue levels when you did. And that is a bummer for sure. Again, though, this all depends on your table and how willing your DM is to just let your homunculus rain down death from above every round once you get that spell storing item, right? Without just like taking them out immediately. And assuming, for that matter, that they're not going to like homebrew the spell storing item to disallow something like a homunculus from using it in the first place, right? So maybe I'm overestimating how like bad those early tier 3 levels might actually feel in practice were you to multiclass. One thing is certain regardless. This build is a freaking late game powerhouse. And I think, yeah, it would be most fun like at levels 9 and 10, and then again at 17 and beyond. So I guess in either case, probably the end of the campaign for most characters, whether they go all the way to 20 or they stop at 10 or so. And there's something to be said for having a character that just builds and builds and builds until suddenly at the end of the campaign, when you really want your characters to be at their very strongest, you're just firing on every freaking cylinder, right? I mean, imagine playing this thing at level 17 and beyond, making 3 attacks every round that hit like a truck, and then throwing out a fireball and conjure barrage on your turn. That's insanity. You would be just death incarnate. And coupled with the really solid defense, plus the support and the utility that you bring, all while terrorizing the battlefield from the back of your best boy doggo. Come on. This thing would be so dang fun to play. So, I certainly hope you get to try it sometime. I know that I would love to, but regardless, that's the build for the week. I hope you enjoyed it. I love you guys. I do. Thank you so much for all that you do for me and for the channel. It means the world to me. It does. I hope you have a fantastic day and a really great week. And if you don't, please don't give up, okay? Hang in there. I hope that you will do good and that you'll be kind and that I see you again very, very soon. But until then, take care. Bye. And I walk these streets, a loaded 6-string on my back. Get it? Instead of a 6-shooter. I play for keeps, 'cause I might not make it back. I've been everywhere, still I'm standing tall. I've seen a million faces, and I've rocked them all. That is the most, like, 80s glam rock line ever. And I love it. Oh, I'm a cowboy. No, you're not, John. On a steel horse I ride, 'cause I'm wanted, wanted, dead or alive. Oh, Bon Jovi. Woo. My daughters and I are playing this little game. There's this stuffed animal here in the lamp. It's a creepy looking thing that my kids got like for, I don't even know what it was for. I don't know if it was Christmas or some event, some birthday thing. I don't know. But they're these creepy little devilly looking like stuffed animal things. And and we've been like hiding them in each other's rooms, like an Elf on the Shelf thing, just to, see if we can get a scare out of somebody when they open their closet door and see this creepy looking thing staring at them. On a steel horse I ride. Frankly, I've been a little intimidated by like the time, by what I've felt, or repeating, that special coded. But then finally at level 9, from a flame tongue lane.